G'day, I'm Tim Thompson. Today I'm excited. I'm out at the University of Melbourne, Dookie campus Vineyard, and we're having a look at replacing some old treated pine posts with new options of trellis posts that don't have any sort of chemical treatment. Let's meet the lecturer in wine, Dr. Chris Barnes, and find out about this project. G'day Chris, how are you mate?
Tim, good mate, good to see you.
Fantastic to see you today. Really exciting project that you've got going on. You're looking at more organic and less treated varieties of posts to use in your vineyard?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an old vineyard. This dates back to the very late 70s, early 80s. Okay. So set up in what was, the traditional manner at the time. So using treated pine posts. Now, two problems. One, the posts have reached the end of their life. They're being treated pine that is, not environmentally and sustainably acceptable these days. So not only do we have to look at the structural manner of this vineyard and repairing it, but we want to do some things that we can show students about alternatives to the old treated pine. So that's why we've got a number of different producers who kindly are working with you to actually put this in. And I think it's important because it'll be able to show students that there's not just one form of trellis system in terms of the end assemblies and also the trellis itself, but alternatives.
It's really important for a teaching and learning vineyard that you keep on trend. And there's a lot of people that are interested in regenerative agriculture, organic viticulture, all of these sorts of things. And yet we're still using treated pine posts that don't last forever. Exactly. They actually have a lifespan. And then you have this tremendous waste problem. What do you do with them at the end?
Exactly.
So today you're looking at concrete posts. You're looking at a very interesting hardwood post that's actually plantation grown, and you're looking at some steel post options.
Good. Well, I'm going to be guided by you because, I want you to sort of tell me about these new options out there because, to be frank, one of the things I don't have time to do is to look at individual, and they're often small producers who are doing innovative stuff out there in this sector. So it's really good to actually have you to sort of tell me about what's going on and then actually see it working. And, we'll see we've got some students later on who are going to be part of the team as well.
Well, let's get going. Cool. Nothing better than having a variety of options in a learning vineyard. Let's go and put them in.
No worries.
Like so many others I know, I got my start at Dookie and it led to a wonderful career. So it was wonderful to come back and actually play a part in preserving the wonderful resources for practical learning that Dookie has on site. We were also joined on the day by some current students who were taking advantage of the work being done in the vineyard to pick up some practical skills. And to be honest with you, I can't think of a better outcome than university students who come out with the academic knowledge, but also some skills to help do the daily chores and tasks around a farm. Hey Tara, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Ben, how are you, mate?
Good, how are you?
Feeling fit and healthy?
Feeling fit and healthy, ready to go, ready to take it on.
Alright, so we've got the Fencestay end assembly going in here, and because it's a lower end assembly, it's actually one that you can put in by hand and you don't need a contractor or a tractor to put in. We're going to be putting it in right beside the old failed pine post here, so that we can take that post out later on and the end assembly is ready to go and it's all braced. So the first thing that we need to do is line up where we want to put the end assembly using the top rail, what will end up being the top rail of the end assembly, and that's got the two guide holes in there and it allows you to get the post in exactly the right position. Learning by doing is so important. Even simple things like putting the post driver on the post while it's on the ground instead of lifting it above your head, those sort of habits that keep people safe and make them more efficient at work can only be picked up through practice. Once they'd got the posts in position, it was a case of pounding them and pounding them and pounding them some more until finally we were ready to set up the brace system, which is so unique for the Fencestay product.
That's done.
So James, Tara, Ben, you've put together your first Fencestay end assembly. We've got the second end assembly at the other end of the row now. What do you reckon? You guys got this nailed?
I reckon.
Definitely.
All right, have at it, guys. One of the wonderful benefits about studying at Dookie for the students is that because they live and learn together, they rapidly form lifelong friendships and bonds, and they learn to work with others as part of a team. And it was just lovely to see these students chipping in and trying out new skills for the first time. With the Fencestay units now installed by hand, it was time for the students to start removing all of the wires and the broken end assemblies on the other 3 rows that we were doing with the use of a contractor. We were really lucky to have Al, a respected fencing contractor in the Shepparton area, to help out with this job. Having learnt his trade in New Zealand, Al's been installing orchard trellis around the Shepparton area and putting in fences along roads for years. So dealing with the 3 different kinds of end assembly was going to be a breeze for him. G'day Al, how are you mate?
Good, good.
Now you learned how to fence in New Zealand and you've been fencing for quite some time around the Shepparton area here?
20 years over here, yep.
And today we're trying to use posts that are not CCA treated. We're trying to find alternatives to CCA. What do you think of that?
Very good, yep. Once I got very crook on posts, they got into my blood system through a cut and I was very ill, so yep, I'm very proud of this one.
Yeah, no, very good. So we've got steel, we've got timber and we've got concrete. What's your expertise? And we'll see you put these fantastic new timber posts in.
Yeah, anyone can learn off a Kiwi.
So while Al got started driving the first of the steel posts for our Fenceline End assembly, I got stuck into teaching some of the students some basic fencing knots, and my goodness, they were a fast study and a pleasure to teach. So let's pull this apart. We'll use our little Nipex to give us a fresh start. That's why we always give ourselves a little bit more wire when we're learning. And then we'll tie this around again. Now you have a go, mate. I reckon you'll get this perfect this time. Have a go at that. Alan made sure that when he rammed the steel posts, he used Fenceline Solutions post grips to increase the stickability of the posts in the ground. With steel posts, it's a good idea to use something like a post grip because it just gives you that little bit extra bite into the ground, particularly when the post is first installed. Because this is a floating stay block, even if the tons of fruit on your vineyard move your end post over time, all you have to do is readjust by using a simple cordless drill. This couldn't be an easier end assembly to put together, and it reduces your contractor time by at least half over your standard box end assemblies. It's as simple as drill a hole, bung it in and tie it up. Done. With the steel end assemblies out of the way, the next end assemblies to install were Australian hardwood posts. Now these are non-treated, rot-resistant wooden posts that still look like treated pine, but perform like hardwood timber, so you know they're going to last. These posts are grown up in northern New South Wales, and the plantation is managed holistically with multi-species and grazing for weed control. They're a post with high environmental credibility. Now that's your Meanwhile, it was back to the students, straining up the fencing wire and learning some more knots. Cut her off. Well, let's go back and do a strainer knot. You're going to bring that wire there and you're going to bring it over the top. Just like that. Pull it all the way down. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bend this wire here straight down. I tell you what, it makes you feel really confident about the future when you get to spend time with such wonderful young future land managers. Next job, of course, was to install the wire stays on the box end assemblies of these super Forest Plantation hardwood posts. Of course, you mustn't forget your Davo's fencing clips when you're working with hardwood. With the row of Super Forest Plantations hardwood posts quickly installed, it was on to the concrete posts, the last posts of the day, but certainly not the least. These Australian manufactured pre-stressed concrete posts can be easily driven with any driver, and Alan, being an experienced operator, having worked with them before, has a number of tips to make the job even easier. First off, he carries the large strainer posts individually on his front forks with a chain tied about 1/3 the way down the post towards the top end. So with the right technique and a good set of forks, they're no more difficult to install than any other post in a vineyard. Don't forget, if you're driving concrete posts, you do need to use a driving cap just to preserve the top of the concrete from chipping and cracking. The intermediate posts, of course, are much smaller than the end posts, and they weigh about the same as any normal hardwood or wet treated pine post, so you don't need the front forks to help you drive them in. One thing Alan does do to get the top rail to exactly the right length and avoid having to trim it with a grinder, he uses the top rail as a measure for his first couple of hits of the intermediate post in the assembly, just to get it exactly the right distance apart. I couldn't get over how much easier it made the job of moving the post driver with that piece of conduit attached to the 3-point linkage. There's a tip I'm going to be using in the future.
The best thing I've done is this bit of conduit here. I can lift her up and down and move it wherever I like without going around the tractor and touching anything, so it works good.
The concrete posts come with their own bracket assembly kit that makes setting up the end assemblies on each end super easy, and the students were right in the thick of it, getting their hands dirty and learning all about this great new product. I couldn't resist getting Alan's professional opinion on a couple of the more unusual vineyard end assemblies that we'd just installed. So Al, number one is the Fencestay. It's short and cute, isn't it? A lot smaller than the others.
And short, yep, definitely.
The kids were able to put this in themselves with a hand knocker and a couple of simple hand tools.
Yep, that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
So I think this is perfect for farmers that want to do their own bit of gear, isn't it?
Yep, it's the beauty of it. It's really easy, simple, and you can carry it easy. You can even carry it on your quad bike. So it's a cheap and easy way. So yeah, it's good.
So next up, we've got the Fenceline Solutions floating stay assembly.
Yep. definitely.
You used these much before?
No, not really. No,
Okay.
I have done them, but not this style.
There's
I've had them
some-
with the rod straight through.
Okay.
But yes, very strong and looks the part. Yeah.
You've got to get the geometry right,
Yes, dead right. Yeah.
and it looks like this one is getting the geometry perfectly right. And with this extra strong stay, you've got the ability to zip your post up a bit of it.
Yeah, I like the way it goes down further. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see how it works at the bottom and the top combined.
Yeah.
Looks the part.
And this will make your fencing job a lot quicker
Yeah,
too, because
yeah.
it's very fast.
Yeah, definitely.
Last but not least, we had to run out new top wires, so we used some good quality 2.5mm wire, span that off our Walters wire spinner, and then it was a simple job of straining up to tension. That's not going anywhere. Then it was over to the expert, Dr. Chris Barnes, to talk about all of the different solutions that he's now got installed on the Teaching and Learning Vineyard. Well, Chris, I think it's looking a little bit better, isn't it, mate? In
Yes.
terms of a resource for student learning.
Absolutely, the improvements, it's great. And also to see these 4 different systems, not on paper, not pictures, but to see it actually working. And also to have used students in this process to see, I guess, the efficacy of putting the systems in.
Yep.
And now, I guess, the next part of the journey is obviously we're starting with bud burst and growth, and we'll see how they work with full crop shoot load.
And I think having the students out here underlines and underpins what Dookie does so well. I mean, we're not only teaching the students about all the amazing academic knowledge that's available in ag now, but they're
Yep.
also getting real world skills.
Yep.
And for a university to invest in multiple modes of learning
Yeah.
and to give them an experience of a vineyard, we've got the canola paddock in the back, we've got the sheep yards.
Yeah.
For the university to make that commitment to student learning, I think is invaluable, because there's no point getting an ag grad that doesn't know how to tie a fencing knot.
Well, sure. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, we certainly do try and have this idea of knowledge and skills.
Yep.
I mean, the application is there in terms of what they see, and they can, get their hands dirty with. I'd emphasise it's not compulsory. I mean, there are some students that simply want to follow the academic path, but some students do want these skills, and it means they have better, I think, short-term and medium-term employment opportunities to them. And the ones that come here to Dookie, they jump into it like a duck to water, as you saw when we had them here in the vineyard the other day.
Having the different end assemblies, the different posts in your vineyard, it's pretty critical. One decision you've made all the way through this, though, is you're going away from CCA and you're going completely to inert products that are not going to put anything into the soils. As a lecturer in wine, can you give us a little bit of an indication as to how important that is for new markets?
Oh, for new markets, absolutely. I mean, look, in terms of there are some markets, and the ones we always talk about there in Scandinavian countries, where to them sustainability, carbon neutral, these sorts of things are really important. And I think it's also part of the whole supply chain, and there is going to be more emphasis on certification for sustainability in vineyards, certification for sustainability in wineries, and all the way through to getting the wine in the package and to the consumer. So this is one, look, it's a small part, but it's a really important part. I mean, and it fits in with the idea across the board that we're trying to go in agricultural way from both treated pine, the classic old treated pine, but also to look at other sustainable alternatives. So obviously, first of all, here we've got the concrete posts. The most obvious positive about this is its durability. I mean, it'll be here longer than I am, and perhaps you are, Tim. So these are sustainable in that sense. We don't have to think about replacing them. I do quite like these. They obviously the durability, and when we were putting these in, we used an experienced contractor, and we got a lot of tips on how to do it. And certainly in the future, I think we can actually speed that process up.
So this next one's a bit intriguing, Chris, isn't it? It's a perfect round peeled hardwood post from Forest Plantations.
Yeah.
Why do you like the idea of these posts for people looking for treated pine alternatives?
Okay, so what I like about this, its positives are, well, first of all, it's Australian. And I mean, that ticks a very big sustainability box. It's native. It is not treated in the sense of the normal treated pine, so it is natural apart from having been worked, as you say, stripped. It's no more or less difficult to put in terms of the technicalities and the skills than our good old standard pine posts. So we don't have to learn or anything new. We don't need any new technology. We can just use these. And look, what I do love about these is because they're not treated, because they're Australian sustainable timber, we can actually just literally bury them in the ground when we don't want them. I know it sounds a bit dramatic, but that's what we can do, and there's no problem with that. And lastly, I understand that these are in fact pieces of those hardwood forests that are harvested for other purposes with timber, but these actually would have otherwise been waste. So it ticks another big box in all of this sustainability chain. And look, I actually quite like the look of them too. So there's a few positives here. And I know that might sound a little bit trite, but you know, how the vineyard looks if you're in business in the cellar door is really important, because when people drive past, they expect to see this. It looks like a vineyard, and then all we need to do is plant some roses at the end, and hey presto, we're selling more wine.
So next up, we've got something that will be very familiar to farmers, particularly in New South Wales, and it's been on the channel a bit before. It's the stay block end assembly from Fenceline Solutions. Very unusual in a vineyard, Chris, but perhaps it need not be. It's got a few advantages. Would you like to tell us about them?
Look, it's interesting. It has some positives. I mean, obviously durability again is one of them, and the components of it are lightweight and it's easy to put together. The exception to that in terms of its ease is you still do need a contractor to drive this post or this pole in, and I mean, what you see above ground is pretty much what's below ground, so you can't do this on your own. The rest of it can be put together relatively easily, so I do quite like this. I think it has positives in terms of reuse, positives in terms of its durability. So you look, one good thing about this too is that I am looking at doing some reworking in this vineyard, and it does mean that if I need to actually remove this end assembly, it's a very simple process to actually take it apart and then put it back together. So it has those positives about it.
So last but not least, Chris, we've got the Fencestay end assembly here. Now you can see some real merit to this.
Yes, I can. Look, one of the things I loved about this was that two students basically put it in themselves. It's when you take the components apart, they're all very lightweight. Throw it in the back of a ute. It is extraordinarily simple, it's easy, and it's got a lot of strength. I mean, you need a bit of oomph to actually drive these in, but nothing that a couple of enthusiastic hobby farmers couldn't do. And in all seriousness, if somebody said to me, look, I want to have enough vines in my backyard and my farm at Euroa to make a barrel of wine, what system I'm going to use, what I'm going to do, I'd say, mate, this is the way to go. It's easy. You'll be able to put it in. You'll be able to put the whole thing together in a weekend. And
no need for contractors.
No, and exactly, as you say. So you and perhaps a mate could do it relatively easily.
Well, Chris, it's always a wonderful opportunity
always
to
good.
talk to you, mate.
Yeah.
There's been some fantastic sponsors and suppliers get behind this, so I'd really like to make a shout out to Australian Concrete Posts, who delivered 2 full rows, Forest Plantations, who delivered a full row, Fenceline Solutions for their end assemblies, and also Fencestay for their end assemblies. Without these sponsors, I couldn't do these videos, but they're genuine products and they really work, and it's great to see them in a new context.
Cheers.
Till next week, guys. Don't forget, if you like this kind of video, hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, and there's plenty more content on timthompson.ag. Chris, until next time,
mate,
it's been wonderful.
As always. Cheers.